It was the dawn of October 30th, 1978, a day that would forever alter the fate of Uganda and Tanzania. The early morning silence along the Kagera River was shattered by the roar of engines and the thunder of tank tracks. Under the direct orders of Field Marshal Idi Amin, Ugandan forces poured across the border into northern Tanzania. To Amin, this was not simply a military operation, it was a stage performance, a grand show meant to crown him as Africa's unshakable strongman. He wanted to humiliate his old rival, Tanzanian President Julius Nyerere, and prove to the continent that Uganda's army was unstoppable. But what Amin envisioned as a triumph of power soon became the beginning of his end. His undisciplined troops turned the invasion into chaos, looting, burning, and murdering villagers along the Tanzanian border. The world watched in disbelief as Amin's army committed atrocities that shocked even his own allies. And in that moment, Nyerere, known for his calm diplomacy, found his final justification to strike back. For years, Nyerere had sheltered Ugandan exiles who had fled Amin's brutal regime. Now, with his homeland attacked and his people enraged, the patient Tanzanian leader transformed into a wartime strategist. What Amin failed to realize was that his reckless invasion had just united the Tanzanians and forged an alliance with the Ugandan rebels who had long dreamed of his downfall. The war that began that morning would burn through the very foundations of Amin's dictatorship. This is the story of arrogance, ambition, and the inevitable collapse of one of Africa's most feared rulers, Idi Amin Dada, the self-proclaimed conqueror of the British Empire in Africa. Idi Amin's journey from a humble boy in rural Uganda to one of the most infamous men in modern history is both astonishing and tragic. Born on May 30th, 1928 in Koboko, in the far northwest of Uganda, Amin came from the Kakwa ethnic minority, a small group often overlooked in Uganda's diverse landscape. His father was a farmer who later converted to Islam, and his mother, Aisha Atta, was said to be a traditional healer. Amin grew up with little formal education, and many historians believe he remained nearly illiterate throughout his life. Yet, what he lacked in schooling, he compensated for with physical power, confidence, and an ability to command attention. Standing over 6 feet tall, muscular, and imposing, Amin's strength and charm earned him a place in the British colonial army in 1946. He joined the King's African Rifles, a regiment that drew recruits from across East Africa. This marked the beginning of his transformation from a poor village boy to a man who would one day command a nation. Amin served under the British in multiple operations, first in Somalia and later in Kenya during the Mau Mau uprising. His bravery in battle was undeniable, but so were his violent tendencies. Still, his colonial commanders saw in him a loyal soldier who got results, even if his methods were ruthless. By the time Uganda gained independence in 1962, Amin had risen to the rank of lieutenant, one of the highest positions an African could achieve in the colonial military at the time. When independence came, the new Prime Minister, Milton Obote, faced the daunting task of building a national army. He saw in Amin a loyal, obedient soldier who could serve as a counterweight to political rivals. Obote promoted him rapidly, from captain to major, then to commander of the army. In return, Amin became Obote's enforcer, carrying out violent operations against dissidents and rebels. In 1966, when Obote ordered an attack on the palace of the Buganda king, Kabaka Mutesa II, it was Amin who led the assault. The attack crushed Buganda's resistance, and Amin's reputation as a fearless but brutal officer grew. However, ambition burned within him. While Obote trusted him, Amin began cultivating his own networks within the military, particularly among soldiers from northern Uganda and Sudan. He presented himself as a man of the people, a soldier who would stand up for the ordinary Ugandan. By the late 1960s, tensions between Obote and Amin reached a breaking point. Obote suspected Amin of corruption and even plotting a coup. But before Obote could act, Amin struck first. On January 25, 1971, while Obote was attending a Commonwealth summit in Singapore, Amin seized power in a swift military coup. Obote was stranded in exile, and Amin declared himself president, commander-in-chief, and head of state. At first, many Ugandans celebrated. Obote had become unpopular due to his authoritarian rule, and Amin's folksy charm seemed refreshing. He walked barefoot among market women, danced in public, and spoke to the masses in simple, direct language. To the poor, he appeared as a man who understood their struggles. The international community also welcomed him at first. Britain, Israel, and other Western nations quickly recognized his new government. But beneath the smiles and handshakes, Amin's Uganda was descending into terror. Within months, he began purging the army of Obote's supporters. Thousands of soldiers, mainly from the Lango and Akoli ethnic groups, were executed. Soon, the killings extended beyond the military. Civil servants, professors, and religious leaders disappeared without a trace. His secret police, the State Research Bureau, became a symbol of fear. Between 1971 and 1979, an estimated 300,000 to 500,000 Ugandans were killed. Rivers were filled with bodies. Neighbors whispered in fear. Uganda had become a land where silence meant survival. Amin's paranoia grew with his power. In August 1972, he expelled over 70,000 Asians, mostly of Indian descent, giving them 90 days to leave the country. He claimed that God had appeared to him in a dream and commanded him to rid Uganda of foreign exploiters. Many ordinary Ugandans cheered the move at first, thinking it would open new business opportunities, but the result was catastrophic. The Asians had run most of Uganda's industries, shops, and factories. When they left, the economy collapsed almost overnight. Factories stopped running, shops went empty, inflation soared. Soldiers who took over businesses had no idea how to run them. What Amin called economic liberation became an economic disaster that crippled Uganda for years. As his rule became more violent, Amin also grew more theatrical. He gave himself endless titles: President for Life, Field Marshal, Al-Haji, Dr. Idi Amin Dada, Lord of all the beasts of the earth and fishes of the sea, and Conqueror of the British Empire. He even declared himself the last King of Scotland. His bizarre letters to world leaders, his flamboyant military parades, and his mocking of foreign powers made him both feared and ridiculed. But behind the humor was a man losing control. By 1973, Amin had alienated nearly all his former allies. He broke ties with Israel, expelled their advisors, and aligned himself with Libya's Muammar Gaddafi and the Soviet Union. His regime became increasingly isolated as the killings and disappearances continued. Even those close to him were not safe. Ministers were executed without trial. Military officers vanished overnight. And yet, Amin still believed he was untouchable. By 1978, Uganda was in chaos. The economy was shattered, the army undisciplined, and international support almost gone. Within the military, discontent grew, especially among officers who had seen friends killed in Amin's paranoid purges. When a group of Ugandan soldiers mutinied in the south and fled into Tanzania, Amin blamed Nyerere for harboring them. Fueled by pride and desperation, he decided to invade. On October 30, 1978, Ugandan troops crossed the Kagera River into Tanzania. They looted villages, burned homes, and massacred civilians. Amin announced that the Kagera region now belonged to Uganda. He thought the move would make him appear strong and rally his people. But he had misjudged everything. Julius Nyerere, the teacher, the philosopher, the man of peace, became a general overnight. He mobilized the Tanzania People's Defense Force, and declared that Amin's aggression would not go unpunished. Ugandan exiles rushed to join him, forming a united front known as the Uganda National Liberation Army. In the months that followed, Tanzania launched a full-scale counteroffensive. Unlike Amin's ragtag soldiers, the Tanzanian army was disciplined, organized, and motivated. By December, they had pushed Ugandan forces out of Tanzania. Nyerere did not stop there. He decided to remove Amin once and for all. As Tanzanian troops advanced toward Kampala, Amin's once mighty army began to crumble. Years of corruption and fear had hollowed it out. Soldiers looted rather than fought. Commanders fled. Even his foreign allies could not save him. Libya sent some troops, and Amin begged for help from the PLO and the Soviet Union, but it was too late. On April 11, 1979, Tanzanian and Ugandan rebel forces entered Kampala. Amin fled the city disguised, leaving behind chaos and corpses. His 8-year rule ended not with a battle, but with a desperate escape. He first fled to Libya under Gaddafi's protection and later found refuge in Saudi Arabia, where he lived quietly until his death in 2003. The man who once terrorized a nation spent his final years in exile, sick and forgotten, far from the land he once ruled with an iron fist. Idi Amin's invasion of Tanzania was the final and fatal mistake of his career. It exposed the weakness of his military, united his enemies, and destroyed whatever legitimacy he still had. What was meant to show power revealed only decay. In less than 6 months, his empire collapsed. His downfall was not caused by a foreign conspiracy, but by his own arrogance, a dictator who believed fear could hold a nation together. In the end, the people he oppressed and the neighbors he provoked brought him down. Idi Amin Dada died on August 16, 2003, in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, from kidney failure. His family pleaded for him to return home to die, but the Ugandan government refused. He was buried quietly in a foreign land, far from the Nile that had once carried the bodies of his victims, far from the country that once trembled at his name. His story remains one of the darkest and most haunting chapters in Africa's post-independence history, a warning to every leader who confuses power with greatness. Brothers and sisters of Africa, if you found this story insightful, please take a moment to like this video so that YouTube recommends it to more viewers who care about Africa's true history. Your support helps us keep Africa's voice strong, independent, and proudly African. Thank you for watching Voice of Africa, where we tell our continent's stories in our own words.